Welcome to episode 240 of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. I'm your host and fellow student, Michelle Nelson, and together we'll learn the basics of home design and construction and demystify the building process so we can better enjoy our home building journey and build quality dream homes with or without a general contractor. Several weeks ago, I got an email from a listener named Deanna. Hey, Deanna. She asked me if I had a list of questions to ask contractors' references. The answer was no. I hadn't thought to compile a list of questions for references before Deanna's email. So thank you, Deanna, for that idea. Now, I've repeatedly recommended that you ask contractors for a list of references, and that applies to general contractors if you're going to hire one, and subcontractors if you'll have direct contact with them. We want to talk to their past clients to see what their experience with the contractor was like. But what exactly should we ask those previous clients? We'll go over the list of questions in just a second. But first, I want to thank L688-653-57866. Thank you for telling everyone on Apple Podcasts that By HiU is just what you needed and that you feel more confident and prepared to build a new house. I appreciate those kind words. Thank you for proclaiming them publicly, and I'm so glad that the show is helping you. I appreciate you for supporting our podcast. All right, let's move on to the content. As you probably know, a major part of doing your due diligence and vetting or investigating a contractor before hiring him or her is to contact some references. Ask the contractors you're considering for your project for ideally at least 3 to 4 references, and make sure you actually contact those references. Most people are very willing to help out by chatting about their homes and construction experiences. Tell the contractor you would like to talk to at least one reference who the contractor worked with recently, and at least one reference who he worked with maybe 8 to 10 years ago, if possible. This will give you some information about the contractor's current practices and tell you how his work holds up over time. Some people think contacting references is not very helpful because they believe that the contractor will only give a list of their best customers who may potentially be unwilling to share anything other than positive remarks. But you'd be surprised by how honest people will be, especially if the contractor is not in earshot of their comments. Plus, my list of questions will hopefully elicit candid, valuable information from those references. Try to limit questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no. Ask mostly open-ended questions that will spark a detailed answer or small conversation. I have a list of 30 questions. Now, that's a lot, and you may not want to ask all of them if you or the reference have limited time. And some questions might be more appropriate for some contractors and situations and not others. Be sensitive to how talkative and open the reference is. If they seem really chatty and comfortable, lots of questions are probably appropriate. If not, ask the questions you deem most important. Here is the list of questions you should ask contractors' references. Number 1, what type of work did the contractor do for you? What is the style and size of your house? Now, it's nice to have a contractor who has experience with houses similar to yours. It may not always be possible, but it's nice. This is particularly true if you're going to hire a general contractor because he's more likely to know subcontractors who can execute the features and details you want. And some subcontractors are intimidated by work on houses that are larger or more detailed than they're used to. Number 2, when did the contractor work on your project? Remember, you want to speak with a recent client and one from at least 8 to 10 years ago, if possible. Number 3, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well did the contractor and his team clean up after themselves? During construction, it's important that the contractor keep the job site clean and orderly. This is important to set a tone of professionalism and respect on the job site. It's also a matter of safety. Disposing of debris, scraps, and trash helps everyone move about the job site freely and decreases trip hazards. Contractors with pride in their craft tend to keep their work environment clean. Number 4, how open was the contractor about incorporating your ideas or new ways of doing things? Or did the contractor seem stuck in his ways? You want a contractor who's willing to learn and explore new ideas, especially if those new ideas are ones that you want to incorporate into your home. Number 5, how well and regularly did the contractor communicate with you? How patient was he when answering questions? If someone is working for you, you want them to return your phone calls and emails in a timely manner and explain things clearly and professionally without getting frustrated. What you don't want is to work with someone who gets annoyed by questions. Number 6, how did the contractor handle problems? When things didn't go exactly as planned, how did the contractor react? Did he address challenges with poise and confidence? Or did he become irritable, overwhelmed, or difficult to work with? You want a contractor who can remain calm and cool under pressure. Number 7, would you characterize the contractor as proactive or reactive, and why? Did he address issues before they became actual problems, or did he only react to problems after they were well developed? Number 8, were there any surprises during construction? If so, what were they, and how were they handled? Number 9, how accurate were your builder's original cost estimates? Ask each reference if the cost quoted by the contractor lined up with the actual cost of the completed project. It's not uncommon for numbers to be a bit off, but you want to make sure you're working with someone who knows how to estimate his costs. And let's remember that during this pandemic era, costs may be a little bit more off than usual. Number 10, was your project completed on schedule? If not, how much extra time did the project take? And were there any delays that could have been avoided? Now, again, to be fair, if your client had work done during the pandemic, you got to give the contractors quite a bit of grace because COVID-related delays due to materials and labor shortages is unfortunately common right now, even for the best contractors. Still, you should ask references whether their home was finished close to the agreed upon schedule. Number 11, was the contractor someone you would describe as usually on time or often late? A fairly accurate completion date for the home or project is important, but the overall timeline isn't the only schedule to consider. Ask references about the day-to-day schedule. Whether the builder and or subcontractors showed up on the job site or for meetings on time, or if they were habitually late. Timeliness makes a big difference if you're having to schedule meetings with a contractor during your lunch break or before picking up the kids from school or practice. Your time is valuable, and you want a contractor to recognize that. Number 12, how commonly did the crew not show up on days they were scheduled to work? I like this question better than the more often asked, did contractors show up as scheduled? First, because we want to ask questions that will make the reference actually think of specific incidences without quickly giving a simple yes or no answer. They may be thinking, well, the contractor usually showed up for work on time, so I'll just answer yes. But as potential clients, we want to know if contractors were no-shows never, twice, or 10 times. Number 13, what kind of personality quirks or weaknesses, if any, did you notice? Things like moodiness, defensiveness, becoming easily overwhelmed, sexism or racism, passive aggressiveness, not self-aware, overly emotional, sensitive, or angry, extremely egotistical or boastful, taking credit for others' work, argumentative, or overly distrustful or suspicious. You know yourself and what personality quirks you can deal with and which ones you'd rather not. Take that into account because if you're building a house, you're spending a lot of time with your contractors, especially the general contractor if you're hiring one. If moodiness is one of your biggest pet peeves, it's probably best to avoid a contractor who is often moody, especially if you have other good options. Number 14, why did you choose to work with this contractor? Number 15, did you have significantly expensive change order fees or unexpected material costs? Okay, again, COVID-related supply chain issues are increasing the costs of most all materials right now, and the cost increases are unpredictable. So we have to keep that in mind. But if the references you're talking to hired the contractor before 2020, the homeowner hopefully did not experience a lot of higher than expected costs. Number 16, if you're asking about a general contractor, ask the client if there were any subcontractors they had problems with, and if so, what sort of problems? Were there miscommunications? Did the contractors do poor quality work or not show up as scheduled? Also ask which subcontractors were their favorites and why. Then follow up with the general contractor to see if they still work with those subs the reference is named. Number 17, how much transparency about materials and labor costs was there? Ask the reference if they got an itemized bid or estimate detailing the labor and materials costs and any markups on materials and labor that the contractor charge. Many contractors will mark up materials and or labor by 10 to 20%. Some of them are very honest about that markup, but many are not. It's important to have a contractor that's transparent and honest. Speaking of honesty, number 18, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest and trustworthy was the contractor? This really needs no more explanation. You want a contractor you can trust. Number 19, how regularly did you meet with the contractor? You don't want to hire a contractor who overextends himself and who doesn't have time for regular progress meetings and calls. Number 20, how comfortable, temperature-wise, is your house in the summer and winter? Additionally, you can ask how happy the reference is with their utility bills and how those bills compare with their previous homes. These are questions you will want to ask general contractors, HVAC contractors, and/or insulation contractors. You'll get some idea of how well those contractors size the HVAC system and insulated the house. And as a follow-up question, you can ask, number 21, did you have your house HERS rated? And if so, was that something your contractor suggested? Also, what was your home's score? All right, can we do a pop quiz here? Do you remember what HERS stands for? HERS? We talked about HERS back in episodes 11 and 12. HERS stands for Home Energy Rating System. A home energy rating involves an analysis of the home's plans and its construction features. The professional rating the home uses software to perform an energy analysis of the home's design. This analysis yields a projected pre-construction HERS index. Then the rater will work with the builder to identify the energy-efficient improvements needed to ensure the home will meet the Energy Star performance guidelines. The rater then conducts on-site inspections, typically including a blower door test to test the leakiness or airtightness of the house, and a duct test to test the leakiness and airtightness of the home's ducts. Results of these tests, along with inputs derived from the plan reviewed, are used to generate a HERS index score for their home. A HERS score of 100 means that a house has about the same air tightness and energy efficiency as a standard new home on the market, usually built according to the minimal code requirements. Nothing extra, just kind of run-of-the-mill. That means that there are many opportunities for a home with a HERS score of 100 to make the house more energy efficient. A zero energy home, on the other hand, which produces the same amount of energy as it uses, has a HERS score of 0. We discussed zero energy homes in episode 45. The closer the HERS score is to 0, the better. All right, let's move on to number 22. Are there any leaks, cracks, malfunctions, or areas of extensive wear and tear or evidence of poor workmanship in your house? This speaks to the quality of construction and longevity of materials chosen. If the reference says there are problems, ask if they reached out to the contractor about repairs and what the response was. Number 23, what was the best part of working with the contractor? Number 24, what was the worst part of working with the contractor? Number 25, what would you have changed about the experience? Number 26, what do you wish you would have known before working with the contractor? Number 27, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with his work? Number 28, how likely are you to work with him again in the future or recommend him to a friend or family member? Number 29, what advice do you have for me if I decide to work with this contractor? And number 30, I'd love to see his work. Are you comfortable sharing some photos with me? Now, this question will obviously not be for every contractor. Most references won't have or can't take pictures of work for an HVAC contractor or insulation guy, for example. But for general contractors, painters, trim carpenters, interior designers, tile and floor contractors, landscapers, and professionals who work on the finishes and the outside parts of the house that we naturally see, it could make sense to get some tangible examples of the contractor's work. If an electrician or plumber has put in some special features, there may be an opportunity to see photos of what they've done. The reference may even feel comfortable inviting you to their home to see the project firsthand. But I tend to let the reference extend the invitation instead of me asking to come over to their home. I think people feel more at ease if they have initiated the invite. Well, that's it for today. That was a lot of questions, but I hope they'll be helpful to you as you move along your home building journey. If you can think of a person or a social media group that would also be helped by this information, would you please share this episode with them? You can share the episode by text, email, GroupMe, or on social media platforms. Well, thank you for stopping by, and I hope you'll come back next time for another episode of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. Please remember that the purpose of this podcast is simply to educate and inform. It's not a substitute for professional advice. The information that you hear is based only on the opinions, research, and experiences of my guests and myself. That information might be incomplete, it's subject to change, and it may not apply to your project. In addition, building codes and requirements vary from region to region, so always consult a professional about specific recommendations for your home.